Okay, good. Most of people who are watching, they're there. Oh, you can't take it. वैसे तो
எவ்வளவு இருக்கு சார் இது? 100 ரூபாய் தான்.
असं पाहिजे ना, त्यामुळे तुम्हाला कॉपी त्यांचं करायचं तर सगळं असं पाहिजे. तिथंच कॉपी करायचं.
சார் இது ஆடியோ கேட்குதா இல்லை இன்னும் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணலையான்னு பாருங்கள்.
அவங்க மியூட் பண்ணிடுங்க.
Doctors, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you all. Very good afternoon to you. We will commence in a minute. Hello, participants.
Continue call.
This is the Rontara Parija. Good afternoon once again. Swagatam. Welcome to this webinar on continuous quality improvement, CQI, in Health Sciences University. We have for today a panel of eminent academicians who have not only excelled in their own disciplines, but also have contributed significantly, deeply, and widely to quality in general. They have studied it, implemented it, enhanced it, and they are now teaching it for all of our benefit. Our first presentation is on challenges in quality assurance during the COVID-19 pandemic. We will wait for some of our delegates to join. They are joining us right now. We will give them a minute or two to join us. In this webinar, the topics have been chosen very carefully. So we are going to start with challenges and go on to look at CQI in health professions education. From there, we'll progress on to CQI in healthcare, that is in implementation. And then we'll talk about a very important aspect of CQI, which is ethical leadership. So this will cover the entire gamut of continuous quality improvement. Our first distinguished speaker for today is Professor Subhash Chandra Parija, Vice Chancellor of Sri Balaji Vidyapith, Pondicherry. I will start with an introduction of Professor Parija. Professor Parija is an eminent academician. He is an erudite medical microbiologist. He's an avid researcher, a keen votary of medical education, and a very able administrator. He was formerly the director of Jawaharlal Institute of Postgraduate Medical Education and Research at Pondicherry, known popularly by its acronym JIPMA. It's an institute of national eminence. Professor Parija possesses near 3.5 decades of rich and satisfying teaching, research, and administrative experience. He has authored various books, about 15 of them, and he is a very prolific scientific publisher, having published more than 300 research papers in national and international journals. Professor Parija epitomizes commitment, dedication, and total involvement in his chosen profession. Professor Parija has held several key positions in the past. A WHO expert in a committee for compilation of data on global prevalence of foodborne microbial diseases, he was awarded the prestigious fellowship by the World Health Organization. As a member of Research Advisory Board of BP Koirala Institute of Health Sciences, Dharan, Nepal, he was also a member of the Board of Examination in Parasitology at Colombo University, Sri Lanka, and is presently visiting professor of the College of Medicine and Health Sciences at Sultan Qaboos University at Muscat, Oman. He has contributed immensely to the growth and progress of medical microbiology, and not only medical microbiology, but also to medical education in general and to quality in specific. He is one of the few medical microbiologists who have been conferred with the DSc degree. The development of simple, economical, and rapid diagnostic tests in sero-diagnosis of parasitic diseases such as amoebiasis, cysticercosis, and hydatid diseases has been his forte. Professor Parija is distinguished in that he was the first to scientifically document and report the prevalence of Entamoeba moscowiczii from India. Professor Parija has also conducted a comprehensive knowledge, attitude, and perception study of rural people in Nepal. He has won many awards, accolades, and recognitions. It will take me about an hour to complete them, so I'll be brief. Of these, important ones are the Internal Oration Award in 1977, conferred by BP Koirala Institute of Health Sciences, Dharan, Nepal, in the field of frontiers of medical microbiology in general and parasitology in particular. He is also the recipient of the most prestigious Dr. B.C. Roy National Award of the Medical Council of India in the year 2003 for his important contributions to the development of medical microbiology. Professor Parija is the editor-in-chief of Tropical Parasitology, associate editor of BMC's Infectious Disease, BMC's Journal of Case Reports, and BMC Research Notes. And he is a member of advisory boards for many other online journals. Professor Parija has founded the Indian Academy of Tropical Parasitology, which is the only professional organization of medical parasitologists in India. He has been conferred with various fellowships that include FAMS, FICAI, FABM, FIMSA, etc. He is a very popular teacher, and he has guided several MD and PhD students and has been examiner for MBBS, MD, and PhD of various universities. Professor Parija will be talking on challenges in quality assurance during COVID-19. Over to Professor Parija. Professor Parija is joining us. He will be with us in a minute. Services ENT and Dean Education of 12 faculties at Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research, deemed to University, Chennai. He was also the member of the Academic Council and the University Development Council, as well as the Advisory Board and Board of Studies at Sri Ramachandra earlier. He now also serves as member, Planning and Monitoring Board of Sri Balaji Vidyapith, Pondicherry. He is a recipient of many awards and positions. He has served in the Indian Army, something that we will all be proud of. And he won the Central Air Command Silver Medal for first rank in his MS ophthalmology in the year 1985. He was also the recipient of National Travel Fellowship from the Association of Otolaryngologists of India in 1991, as well as Dr. P.N. Berry Travel Fellowship in UK from 1992 to 1994. He was GOC in C, West Command Commendation Card 2002. He is a member of the National Academy of Medical Sciences, admitted in 2009, and he was also admitted as fellow to the National Academy of Medical Sciences in 2015. He was awarded the Fellowship of Royal College of Physician Surgeons of Glasgow in 2017. He is an assessor for NAC as well as National Board of Examinations, and is a member for the Bureau of Indian Standards, India. He is also a nominated member of the Planning and Development Board of Sri Balaji Vidyapith, Puducherry, and he has been awarded Colonel Sangamlal Memorial Award in 2018-19 by NAMS. He has published more than 95 publications in national and international journals. He has 137 conference presentations and lectures to his credit, and he has been a PhD guide for 6 scholars and co-guide for 4 scholars. He has completed numerous research projects, and he is the research ambassador mentor of the university, SRM University of in Science and Technology, since 2017. His research, academic and scholarly focus is on cochlear implantation, being the director of cochlear implant program of Sri Ramachandra since 2006. His interest is also in laryngotracheal stenosis, noise protection devices, and medical education. He has contributed to hearing awareness camps in districts of Tamil Nadu for children with hearing impairment. He'll be our third speaker. Our last speaker will be speaking on a very important topic, Professor Himanshu Roy. Himanshu Roy has a website, himanshuroy.com. I went through it, very interesting. He's not from the medical field, he's from management. He's the director of Indian Institute of Management at Indore, India. Under his leadership, Indian Institute of Management Indore achieved the Triple Crown accreditation of AMBA, AACSB, and EQIS, which makes it one of the very few select institutions in the world to have this distinguished honor. Prior to this, he was the Dean of SDA Bocconi India campus. He also served as a professor at SDA Bocconi in Milan, Italy. He has taught at IIM Lucknow and XLRI. He's an alumnus of IIM himself, and he has a very varied and very interesting profile, which also includes a stint of over 8 years at Tata Steel in India, where he played a pivotal role in developing quality systems and communication policy for the company. His book, titled Negotiation, is published by McGraw-Hill Education. It is a bestseller on Amazon. It is also available on Flipkart. His TEDx talk on ethical leadership, lessons from the Vedas, has won him several accolades and is well known. If we search for Professor Himanshu Roy, these information come up very easily. Himanshu Roy, professor, also practices and teaches yoga. It is his passion, and he considers the Himalayas his spiritual abode. He is also very, very passionate about mountaineering and trekking, and he has scaled various heights, including Rudragiri, Kalapattar, Naga Karsang, Katling, and Chandrashila peaks. He is an avid quizzer, and he has conducted over 100 quiz shows across the country and has had a delightful stint in dramatics with many plays to his credit, both as an actor as well as a director. He juggles various interests with a keen interest in reading, collecting books, and a strong passion for music. We'll be hearing from him on ethical leadership for health professions. Now, if I may return to our first speaker, pardon us for this pause, please. We'll return to Professor Subhash Chandra Parija for his opening presentation on challenges in quality assurance during COVID-19 pandemic. Professor Parija, sir.
At the outset, on my behalf and behalf of Sri Balaji Vidyapit and our Chancellor, Sri M.K. Rajgopal, I extend a hearty welcome to all of you for today's interesting seminar on quality, that is continuous quality improvement in health science diversity. At the outset, I must thank our speakers of eminence, Professor K.R. Seturaman, Professor Lieutenant Colonel A. Ravi Kumar, and Professor Himanshu Roy, having agreed and being present today to share their thoughts on different aspects of quality assurance management. I also take this opportunity to thank Dr. Usha Karunanidhi, our Director of Accreditations, who has been instrumental in organizing this program, but being not available due to some personal reasons. So, as we know, this quality assurance, today I'm going to share challenges in quality assurance during COVID-19 pandemics. This COVID-19 pandemic of this 21st century, has affected each and every one of us in all the aspects. This has brought a great change, a new scenario that has been followed by this COVID-19 pandemics. So,
Okay, close one.
as we know, when we talk of quality in medical education, it can be defined as relative terms. Defined as, in a relative terms, as the state of reaching required standards as prescribed by the external agencies, and it meets those standards time and again. And this medical educations and quality, which are both integrated, and these medical educations at the different levels of undergraduate and postgraduate is an important component. When we think of quality assurance in the parlance of academics or education, it definitely involves the systematic and comprehensive review of educational provisions to maintain and improve its quality, equity, and efficiency. It covers a wide range, including evaluations, external evaluations, and obviously, it also includes the evaluation of teachers and leaders and students, the different stakeholders in this learning and teaching activities and further assessment. This quality assessment assurance is assessed by different parameters by different stakeholders. For example, there are different parameters. One is of satisfaction by stakeholders, and it also includes the standard that has been included to this quality assurance program, that includes the different procedures that has been followed for improvement, for service, and of course, quality assurance that has been passed on to the customers. So these are different stakeholders and different components that contributes a lot in quality assurance assessed by different stakeholders from their different perspectives, being as a different stakeholder, as a customer, or from the point of service, or from the perspectives of the improvements. Now, when you think of quality assurance, there are components when to implement the quality assurance. Obviously, one has to design a system, a protocol for quality assurance that is applicable in all the branches of sciences, including medical science, to design a system, a protocol, and testing it. After testing it, employ it, and followed by necessary support in terms of infrastructure, manpower, and other logistics. And when it is tested, implemented, the most important component is feedback. And with this feedback, again, another cycle starts to incorporate some of those feedbacks to again the revised protocol, and the cycles go on. So this means this quality assurance is a cyclical procedure. It's a continuous process that starts from initiating of a design protocol and obviously finally enriched by the feedbacks. So to summarize, This quality assurance obviously is not an endpoint. It is a continuous process of assurance for quality enhancement. And it is understood this quality assurance program is always independent of financial and other pressures. And it is always based on the quality processes that are strong and robust and are being followed for successful cyclic procedure of quality assurance. And definitely, quality assurance is not an add-on point, but it all remains an integral to the operations. It is responsible for day-to-day operations and for longer-term goal settings. So with this background, when we think of this scenario before COVID and now this post-COVID, challenges are many, particularly in the scenario of medical educations. Before COVID pandemic, the classrooms were mostly physical, compartmental in the four walls of a classroom, and in health sciences, clinical training in the wards, hospitals, with patients being one of the most important component of teaching and learning process of this medical curriculum. But after post-COVID, challenges are many because of the constraint one has to shift from the conventional classroom teaching to the extra classrooms. So to meet those challenges of COVID, post-COVID scenario, it has many stakeholders who play an important role in meeting the successful assurance of quality assurance in medical educations in the post-COVID scenario. First and foremost, as administrator, we do believe training of the faculties and students, changing the mindset from the conventional, classical, offline teaching, which forms the main component of teaching in health sciences, to online teaching and assessment that may, although may not replace completely all the components of this teaching in health sciences, like practical skill development, but in system wherever it's possible to offer online teaching. So one has to train the faculties and students, sensitize them so that they are well aware and well versed to accept and to be a part of in this online teachings and assessment. And definitely, when we shift gradually to the online teachings, obviously there is a need for the creation of resource materials with standard references. These resource materials should be strong, it should be accurate, and it should be informative as well as recent. And another component is training of hospital team and the premises for COVID-19. This is becoming a major challenge for the hospital administrators because they have to maintain the constraints of a COVID-19, building the safety measures to contain COVID-19 and to prevent transmission of infections to healthcare teams, faculties, students, and other workers. And also, another challenge remains overcoming the shortage of resources and competent personnel. Of course, not only this, there are different challenges from different stakeholders, governments, public, students, and their parents. Students' perceptions, parent perceptions about this online teachings, how far it substitute the online teaching, how far it supplement or substitute satisfactory the classical conventional offline teachings. And definitely when one initiate this good platform and ambience for this online teaching programs and assessment with qualitative materials, it involves high running and maintenance cost. Hence, the cost to be invested by the institution is a major challenge. Having told that, when we implement this quality assurance program in this post-COVID scenario, we have got two important components. One, challenges in the implementation of the quality assurance program, and another set of challenges that is seen in the sustenance of these quality assurance programs. In the initial stage, definitely, there is a need for the knowledgeable and experienced teams that can implement, that can support and create for the good teaching materials, study materials for these online teachings. And as I mentioned, another second important point is the change in the mindset and approach. We must understand that online teaching is not just video transmission of a class being taught in a offline class, but definitely it is a complex process that involves the use of adequate and correct materials, video materials that will make an effective learning teaching activities. And third challenge in implementation phase is the need for communications and collaborations with these collaborations with the stakeholder who have got some expertise, who can share their experience and skill in running this online programs. And second, having introduced the program, definitely there is a need for continuous tracking and monitoring of these programs. After implementations of these programs, then in the second phase of the sustenance, again, there is a need for continuous integrations and release of new builds. Again, that also requires change in the mindsets, change to overcome their initial hesitance, initial resistance, and make them a positive approach for implementing and making it sustainable, and to further strengthen, communicate and collaborate with the like-minded stakeholders to make it more sustainable, and obviously followed by continuous integration and release of new builds. Now, when we think of impact and challenge of COVID in research in medical education is many. This is a major setback in the research. In post-COVID days, there is a lack in availability of in vivo studies, lack of availability of the patients, cases, and study materials, and obviously lack of clinical trials because of post-COVID scenario. And the most important in post-COVID scenario that has affected research is the non-availability of the human resources for support of research activities. And definitely this pandemic, we all understand, all of us, all health workers, they're engaged in patient care, which is of utmost importance. Obviously, there will be less of time for research. And definitely in this context scenario, one also has to understand and find out newer studies, researches in the COVID-related studies. That will be most important. So, to summarize, medical education, quality assurance, and in this pandemic of COVID scenario, we can think of few ways, pathways for the future. First and foremost being development in e-learning and robust technologies that will make the students, faculties, and other stakeholders to adopt these technologies. And this needs ambience for a strong student support system and faculty training. Unless faculties who are responsible for delivering proper online teaching programs, so that training is utmost important. And for development of e-learning and e-learning technologies, obviously strengthening of the existing infrastructure to cater to the need of hosting e-learning and technology is most important. And it will be supplemented by strengthening of e-governance, which is the need of the future. And in this scenario, when there is setback in the in vivo components of the research, other components which are available pre-COVID scenario, so definitely one has to modify, one has to improvise research setup so that research does not take a backseat. And definitely one has to always recreate new and best practices, thinking these challenges into opportunity. I'm confident all these will show us the way and make us firm and confident to integrate quality assurance in this medical education in this post-COVID scenario. Though it is quite challenging, but definitely with collaborations and communications with like-minded institutions, like-minded experts, and learning best practices from the other institutions, all of us can come together to a system, to an ambience in which we can give best to our students in this COVID scenario. Thank you. Thank you very much for your patience hearing.
Thank you very much, sir, for walking us through the challenges in quality assurance during this COVID pandemic. Thank you very much. The topic for our second session is continuous quality improvement in health professions education. Click பண்ணா அந்த presentation மேல ஒரே தடவை click பண்ணு. Yeah. Presentation மேல ஒரு தடவை click பண்ணு. நான் presentation மாத்து. This topic will be delivered by Professor K.R. Seduraman, Dean, Faculty of Medicine, AIMS University, Malaysia. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Jagan. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Very clear, sir.
Okay. The screen visible?
Screen is visible, sir. Your presentation is visible.
Okay, thank you very much to the senior management of Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth for asking me to speak on this topic. And especially thank Dr. Usha for doing an initial planning session with me where I thought we'll go in this order of quality improvement in education, and that is meant for
Sir, your audio is not there.
Okay, sir, please unmute, sir.
Now am I audible?
Yes, sir. We are sorry, sir. We tried to unmute everybody, and in that process, you also got muted.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay,
sir.
okay.
Please go ahead, sir. Sorry for the interruption.
So I hope you heard me thanking Dr. Usha, and I wish her a speedy recovery, and thank Dr. Jagan for stepping in at the last minute to moderate the show. And this is the topic related to health professions education. And I bring greetings from our garden campus, which some of the officials from Balaji Vidyapith visited last year in October, in fact. And we are siblings now because they have signed a MOU with us. And so when Usha asked, I couldn't say no to sibling university. And this medical education was a neglected field for quality improvement for a long time. In fact, in 1995, when National Teacher Training Center at Jipmer, I put up this cartoon, and it was put in the book, and it has now become one of the often quoted cartoons. The physicians of tomorrow are taught by teachers of today using curriculum of yesterday. But that was changed in '97 by new curriculum released by MCI. And then last year, they've again done a revision of that. So this was a lament in 25 years back, but I think it is not valid today. But we have to keep going because what our Nobel laureate Tagore, the poet, said, it's a very visionary statement, and I dedicate this talk to him. Don't limit a child to your own learning, for he was born in another time. This is 21st century. These are digital natives. They're born with a mobile phone in hand, silver mobile phone in hand. So therefore, we have to take care of their needs and not chalk and talk, which we underwent decades ago. So today my talk was quite loaded. I don't think I can finish in 25 minutes. So I'll just speak 2 or 3 minutes and hope that other speakers will pitch in, and together we'll make a whole. So what is quality in the context of health professions education for a minute or two? Then the difference between QA and Cqi, and the quality domains of World Federation of Medical Education. Those documents are available on the net. Anyone can download. And in fact, our new MCA curriculum derives a lot, plenty from this WFMA document. So I'm not going to talk on that aspect. Stakeholders in Cqi in health HP education, levels of involvement at institutional level, departmental level, and individual teacher level. We'll just highlight briefly. Then go on to the Cqi process, the PDCA model, Kaizen model, and logic development model. And I'll show one example of how it can be, how I have applied in my life at when I was at JIPMA. And the globalization, which is a new buzzword in medical education and health professions education. Then flip side of Cqi, everything has got a dark side. So the talk won't be complete without spending a minute or two on the tyranny of the metrics and the metric burnout, etc. And in between, I'll add some personal anecdotes worth sharing because that is my style. So allow me that privilege. Okay, first QA, QC, and QI. This Dr. Roy is going to speak later. So I'll just show the definition. ISO 9000 says, actually quality control comes first. It's a part of quality management focused on fulfilling quality requirements. Inspection is a major component of this, QC, and it's product oriented. So whether products are defective or products are up to the mark or better than the expectations. So that is a whole focus of quality control. And it stresses the defect identification and correction. Quality assurance is process oriented. The part of quality management that focused on providing confidence that quality requirements will be fulfilled by the organization or by the supplier or provider. So QA is process oriented and the focus is on defect prevention. Instead of correction, it is prevention. And QI is the institutional ethos about building and executing a quality system for continuously striving for improvement. So next is difference between what is QA and QI, CQI. QA, when you do a quality survey audit of your own thing, we used to do in Balaji Vidyapeeth when I was there for 5 years, and the defects are identified and corrected. So that is an example of quality assurance, where we say don't fix it if it is not broken. If something is going on well, we stick with that. Something is not going on well, we attend only to that. Don't fix it if it ain't broken. That is the original American slang. Whereas QI, you be proactive instead of being reactive. How can we do even better? So whether it is worse quality or better quality, you strive for continuous improvement so that it is even better. This is what is done by model top of the line models. Now Apple phone is a desirable product. Even Apple 6 was great, but they keep on improving every time, and amazing changes come out every year. So an example of continuous quality improvement. And next, we look at the 3 basic questions in CQI. In higher education, it's very simple. Who learns? What is the kind of students that we get? And who teaches? And ultimately, what is learned and what is the outcome? So that is the 3 basic questions. In QA audit, quality assurance audit, it is who is in charge of the assessment or accreditation process, what is being assessed, and how is it being assessed. So I'll give 2 examples, because I worked in Balaji for 5 years, 5 months, and I'm in Malaysia for my 10th year. I've seen both places. In Balaji, when I was there, Jagan will know, we used to do All India Survey of Higher Education Q1, and Dr. Erumalai will be all the time hustling everybody. April 1st is the deadline, I have to meet and all that. Then after that, we start NAC annual report, Q2, Q3. So busy collecting all that. And then in Q4, it is time for next NIRF submission. And in between, MCA will come many times. So now with the change to National Medical Commission, I don't know what is the new policy and process in India, but this is what I underwent, and my face is shown by the emoji. Whereas in Malaysia, it's a joint exercise by Malaysian Qualification Agency, Ministry of Higher Education, plus the respective health professions council. So when they come for nursing faculty, the nursing council will send some representatives. So it's a joint visit once in 3 years or once in 5 years, depending on how many years they give you. So it is much more relaxing, and this is that emoji shows my attitude in the current place as Dean of Medical School here. So the next is the stakeholders. The stakeholders are, of course, internal. The learners, after all, they are the ultimate beneficiaries from the system in the higher education when they go out. And the teachers, administrative staff, support staff, etc. And senior management for giving guidance and leadership and vision and mission. And financiers and patrons like our Chancellor, founding Chancellor, Mr. Rajgopalan. And external or regulatory agencies, which are varied and keeps varying in India many times, accreditation agencies. Then of course, external ultimate stakeholder is the health care seeking public who come and get treated by our products, the learners who pass out and go as healthcare providers. But what I found is, even though it looks very varied, there is a common unifying goal, which often we forget, and that is a thing for many quarrels. So I always remind people to get harmony. Ultimately, what does everybody want? Whether he is a financier founder or a patient or a doctor or even parent of the student who joins, to produce competent healthcare providers of high caliber who can match and even exceed the expectations of stakeholders for quality healthcare. Everybody wants to be a good doctor, a good nurse, or a good lab professional. So there is a unification there, and we keep the ultimate goal in mind. There are several paths of reaching, and that is where the differences come, and that can be sorted out harmoniously rather than bickering. And so for that, there are some models. I'll just share 3 models and then show a practical example. The logic model management also uses that as input process product model, CIPP, shuffle beam, and all that. But here in QI, it's called logic model, a systematic and visual way to sequentially present the linkages among the resources you have to operate the program and the educational activities you plan, the teaching, learning, and assessment, and the changes you hope to achieve. So the green square is our planned work, and 3, 4, 5, the red square is the intended results. So I'll show one more explaining that further. So resources and inputs are, of course, the curriculum, the lecture halls, and now it's online facilities and all that, and the TL process, face-to-face or remote, online, etc. Then what is output? Competent doctors. What is the outcome? Quality healthcare, which is the topic of the next speaker, so I won't touch upon that. And what is the impact? Community wellness. So ultimately, quality healthcare is provided, the community will be well and they'll be happy, and that is the intended result. So now to achieve all this in the 21st century, healthcare institutions and higher education institutions globally have coined this word, supportmento, meaning a combination of 2 words, globalization and localization. So they call it localize. Think global and focus on local context. That is the way to go. And local physicians are equipped with skills and knowledge to adapt to changing global and local context. So whether a product of SBB works in Pilayarkuppam there in the village, or goes to Delhi metropolis, or goes abroad to Gulf or US or Australia, they should be able to adapt and offer quality service. So that is the meaning of local healthcare provider. And in the context of accreditation, it refers to adoption of international reference standards, and localization refers to adaptation of external standards for local context. I'll give 2 examples. The new MBBS curriculum of Medical Council of India is aligned with, as I said, World Federation of Medical Education standards for UG medical education, but it also addresses the healthcare and health priorities in India. It's a good attempt at localization. Of course, it needs further refinement. The curriculum we follow at AIMS is adopted from British models, hybrid curriculum, based on tomorrow's doctor's document. And it's got a strong focus, especially in the clinical years, on various clinical practice guidelines brought out by Health Ministry of Malaysia. They are very regular in updating the CPGs, and we use it as our scenario creating sources for our final year exam. Almost all the colleges in Malaysia. So therefore, there is a lot of localization already in place in this nation. So this logic model, how do we apply to higher education? Or how do we apply to curriculum? So that is called as aligning of the curriculum to this linear model, logic model, which is said. The intended curriculum is what we want them to learn, our objectives, etc. The taught curriculum is what is actually planned to be taught. Experience curriculum. We planned so many things for 2020, but Corona came and the experience curriculum is all Zoom sessions everywhere, all over the world. So it differs from student to student. Many of them switch on the camera and go and sleep in the bed, and we give them attendance. That is the reality. So taught curriculum and experience curriculum are not the same. And then we try to assess as much of the experience curriculum as possible for sampling, but you cannot do 100% sampling. And then achieved curriculum, what each student achieves also varies. So what was the intent and what is the final achievement? There is always a gap, what is shown in the red arrow. This curricular gap between the intended objectives and ultimate achieved outcomes is the focus of continuous quality improvement. That is a gap we have to fill up or bridge. So for that, what we can do is start with a SWOT chart. So that is the starting point for SWOT. What are the strengths of our system, our department, or me as an individual teacher? What are the weaknesses of the institution, of the department, of the individual? External factors, what are the opportunities? What are the threats? So this list can be done, and usually it is a brainstorming exercise, and we finalize the thing. And from that, we can adopt this two models. I'll just show there are several more which Dr. Himanshu might highlight. PDSA is used by higher education institutions. Plan, do, study, and act. So plan is you plan your objectives, predictions, and who will do what, where, when, etc. Then implement the plan, carry it out, and document everything, and do data analysis. Once you complete the data analysis, you get information, you get knowledge, you get wisdom, and you summarize what was learned, what is the lesson for the next cycle. And you implement the improvement. Cqi is an action. In the fourth part of the cycle, it is done. So this is easy to remember, PDSA model. They also call it PDCA model. Some of the managers use the term PDCA, PDSA also is more in education institutions. Alternate one, which is a favorite of many people in the management, is 6-step cycle of Kaizen. It is similar, but instead of 4 steps, it is 6 steps. So first we prioritize, we identify the problem, analyze the problem, and the SWOT chart helps for that. Then plan solutions, test the solution, measure the outcome and results, and if it is good, then you standardize and sustain it as a cycle. So Kaizen cycle, I have done it in JIPMER in 1988, a long time ago. I didn't know that it was called Kaizen cycle and all that. I'll just put a layman's recording first. This is what I had written in my diary. The reason was through epiphany, just accidental discovery when I was skilled assistant in 1987 exam. A final year MBBS student in JIPMER, where 200,000 to 500,000 people write and about 150 finally get in. But this fellow studied for 4.5 years, and that person, I won't say boy or a girl, one of them did not know how to use sphygmomanometer. He kept the mercury column flat, and BP was 300, and still he is pumping it. So then I had that reaction. My God, I've taught this guy 3 years medicine in the team along with others, and then the guy doesn't even know how to take BP. So I had a sense of responsibility that every student should be able to do must-do skill. This happened because he slipped through the network. There are 20 students in the batch or 15 students. The high achievers, they come forward and do everything, and these guys stand back, and then they get into all these difficulties. So what was my right? As I was a unit head by then, so as a unit head, I could do on my own. And of course, there was resistance from educators. Even head of the department was totally against it. That is, using objective structured clinical examination. We used to do 5 to 7 stations in the ward itself, just to elicit the sign. Only thing is, all the 20 students or 15 students will do it individually, and one of the PG students will keep a checklist and correct all the mistakes. So together in about 1.5 years, we spin-off was the first cyclostyle manual on OSCE. And then educators laughed at it. OSCE is an evaluation tool. How can you use it for teaching and all that? A senior person in national teacher training actually was ridiculing that. So instead of bowing down, I took it as a challenge. We compiled all the experience, and the article was published in 1993 in Medical Teacher. Then sustainability. Students felt so happy that when HOD actually banned it from being done, they came to my house in the campus and said, "Sir, don't stop, please continue." So then I continued for several years, as long as I was, I think till 2001, I was supervising. After that, I heard that it's still going on. 3, 4 heads of departments have changed. It is still going on in a sustainable fashion. And external examiners who used to say that your students, many of them are theory masters and don't know clinical skills, they appreciated. 2, 3 years later, they said, "What happened to your students? They are so good in clinical skills." No magic, just the Cqi being done on this Kaizen model. We identify the problem, we analyze the solution, difficulties, and planned a solution that is a formative ASCII, tested it, pilot, and then measured the outcome. It was gratifying. And because students like it, they demand from medicine department whenever they come to final year, and it is going on even now. And alumni who passed in 1991 and all that, they write to me every year in Teachers' Day and all that. Still remember your ASCII sessions are great. It is even today I know all the skills and all that. So I just wanted to spend some time on this, that individual teacher can do a lot also. I never knew that it will end up like this. Of course, I've done 10 or 12 experiments like this, Cqi. I'm only sharing the success story. When there is time, the flops also I'll share with you, but not today. And once you do the audit and you get the results, whether it is individual audit, departmental audit, or institutional audit, there is a way of giving feedback. Shaming and guilt-inducing feedback is not very effective, as this cartoon shows. "Look here, Mr. Kumar, you pen all this drivel and wasting my time. You think we are fools to answer your, read your answer book and award marks? No way," etc. And you can add some bad words if you want, fool, etc., etc. But more effective by counselors, they say, is positive effort, asset-based approach. His handwriting is good, so you appreciate that. Your handwriting is so nice and eligible. If what you write as an answer is as good as how you write it, you can get an A, you know. So why don't you study well and match the substance with the style? So it indicates that substance is rotten without saying so. So it also motivates him. Okay, my handwriting is good, teacher is appreciative, so why don't I read well and write something worthwhile? So this is just an example of mentoring and how it works. And now we move on to Cqi of evaluation or assessment, the engine that drives the curriculum in higher education. This is an old cartoon, Napier University, Edinburgh. Assessment converts fuel into learning, and assessment alone, because it is the engine. This was stated by Napier University several decades ago, and it is valid even today, very much valid. So therefore, we have to ensure quality of evaluation. And if evaluation is good, you have assessment for learning, assessment of learning, and assessment as learning, all the three in place, then Cqi cycle can be very productive. So we have to take care of the relevance, the validity, the reliability, the objectivity, appropriateness, bias-free process, and how the results will be interpreted and used, standard setting, etc. Then is there a Cqi process to continuously improve the evaluation system? So, so quality of audit and supervision, you can go on talking, but I think the most telling, which I keep sharing the story in most platforms, is Tenal Raman's story for effective supervision and audit. When King Krishna Deva Raya praised the people of his kingdom for being upright and honest, the jester Tenal Raman said, "People behave well, king, you know, because you have rules to control their behavior. You relax your rules and you will see their true nature." So king didn't believe. So one day he ordered every household to pour 1 pot of milk into the temple tank before sunrise. And early morning, they had to perform religious rites. In the temple, no god was there that day. Everyone thought that if he or she poured a pot of water, no one will notice it. So next morning when king came with Krishna, the Tenal Raman, It was a matter of collective shame for the whole kingdom that the tank was filled with water and not a pot of milk at all. So then he told the king appreciated Tenali Raman's wisdom and said, "Yeah, that's correct. The audit is very important, and unless so, this my current VC here, Professor Harcharan Singh, keeps saying this. I've been hearing it from 2006 onwards. Trust is good in principle. Checking and audit are better in practice." He keeps saying it in every instance, and that is our mantra here when we do quality audit in AIMS University. Trust is good, but checking is better. And of course, whenever you do the CQI and all that, there are barriers and to any change and any innovation. There are external barriers. National regulations keep on changing. As I said, in India, there are 3-4 agencies, and you have to keep on submitting different formats to the same data, and it becomes a big headache. I've asked so many times Dr. Jagan whether it's one database can be made, and from there we can extract these different things without struggling so much. So much of struggle in Balaji Vidyapith. Local regulations keeps changing. Then of course opposition from lobbying and interest groups. Then internal culture of shame, discomfort within the culture of blame, staff motivation, unapproachable management, system not tuned to innovate, inexperience, and investment capital. They say, why waste money on all this quality improvement, etc. So I'm again showing a picture to summarize this attitude. This I picked up from an Australian who gave a talk in WHO medical education some 30 years back. Whenever you propose an innovation, there will be opposition. Here, the Cqi initiative is the thing that is being pushed. The green person, the green square, A is the leader who pushes it. Let's move forward. And he can go only if there are supporters. There are collaborators who are actively supporting. There are followers who are also supporting. There are accommodators who are not sure, but they say, okay, he's a good man, let us follow. And on the other hand, there are in the middle are indifferent people. Some don't know what is happening. Some know what is happening, but they're indifferent. I'm sure in Balaji, I have seen all this for 5 years, 5 months. Then in opposition, there is active opponent who will, J is a red square is active opponent who is hostile and says, you cannot do that. If you do this, put this MC OSCE, then everybody will fail. Only long case we can pass them easily and all. Then they resist. Sorry. Then other people, they resist, G and H. There are passive people who, G is participating, acting as if he is going along, but he is just using a little finger to lift it up. Passive fellows just walk along and resisting, actually are walking in the opposite direction. So all these individuals of different color and varying support, positive and negative manner, all this you will see in any CQI initiative. And it is for the management. This is where higher management comes, how we unify the people and make them work harmoniously. The other second one is the flip side. There is a book, if you're interested, you can read that. Muller, professor in Princeton University, says, anything that can be measured and rewarded will be granted, will be gamed, and over-reliance on metrics can lead us to disproportionately value things that are easiest to measure. And too many people appear oblivious to these basic facts of life. I'll put it in very simple medical example. Why this happens is, there are basically two kinds of knowledge, a declarative knowledge and a procedural knowledge. Declarative knowledge based on facts, information, and ideas. Like what we say, if somebody is sick, they should not attend office, they can take leave on medical grounds. That is the declarative statement, very laudable, very noble. But procedural, what happens? You use skill, strategies, and processes. Innovative, tacit, and exploitative methods of using any loophole to somehow fulfill the stated requirements. Okay, today I don't want to go to office, so apply medical leave. So just say I got backache or I got diarrhea, and then the kind doctor gives a MC. So what was declarative as a noble thing has become a much maligned procedural anomaly. So this is how everything is gamed, whether it is a CQI or audit or accreditation process and all that. So this is the basic fact of life which we have to take. Rules will be bypassed if you allow them to be bypassed somehow. And third one, which many educationists point out is if you are too prescriptive, what happens is what they call as institutional isomorphism. Every institution in the nation will be similar, like clones. That is not the way for academic freedom and institutional diversity. So just like biodiversity is the key to quality improvement, you need institutional diversity also. So there has to be, the core area can be prescriptive, but there must be several desirable areas which should be given autonomy to the institutions to develop. You can be coercive, you can be normative. Coercive is legally sanctioned, normative is morally governed. Shouldn't my college be also 4-star category? Shouldn't we get a NAC rating, etc., etc.? Then mimetic is, of course, miming. Other college, my rival college is 5-star, man, so we should get 6-star. No? So start competing. If it is healthy rivalry, that is good, as long as it is not destructive envy. So these are how to evaluate institutions without undermining their freedom and to do diversity is the global challenge now. So finally, before closing, I'll just share a SBB experience. I joined in 2013 early, but even in 2012, my predecessor had started. We were in bottom of 780 universities, and within 6 years, we could zoom up to 72nd rank, which sustained the next year also, 2019 rank. So how it happened is because of resonant leadership, right from the founding chancellor to our other chancellors who are interim, the pro VC, the etc., etc. And I had the role to play of promoting fact-finding and not fault-finding and blame culture, and try to create a nurturing climate where everybody wins, a unifying goal. So that worked and seemed to work as a euphonic orchestra model. If you do not do that, then it becomes cacophony and it will sooner or later show. So with that, I want to summarize, once again thanking Balaji Vidyapeeth, that in a competitive milieu as at present, our health professions institutions need to continuously improve the quality of educational experiences of the learner. And since the ultimate beneficiaries are the people, we need to localize, that is, adopt world standards and adapt it to suit local needs. PDSA cycle or Kaizen model is a good starting point in the path towards CQI. And with harmonious, cooperative, coordinated, and collaborative effort, it is possible to find your unique path to success. Balaji Vidyapeeth had done it earlier. I'm sure it can do it again in this NAC cycle. Best wishes to all of you. With that, this comes from AIMS University, including our VC, the sibling and our MOU partner. And close with Mahatma Gandhi's noble thought, we must be the change we wish to see in the world, whether it is our college, our department, ourselves, or our institution, or our nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Unfortunately, we are running a bit late. Professor Rai has a previous engagement at 4. Professor Ravi Kumar, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, may I very humbly request you to conclude this session?
No problem. Let him talk.
Thank you very, very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Professor Himanshu Rai, sir. Are you ready, sir? Right, great. Sir, Professor Himanshu Rai, Director of Indian Institute of Management, Indo, will present his topic on ethical leadership for health professionals. Please go ahead.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. And a very good afternoon to all of you. Sorry for
kind of this change in the sequence of events, which was necessitated because I had given time at 4 o'clock to somebody else. And I'd kind of assumed that things will be in order. But can we have others on mute?
Sir, please hold on 1 second. We will mute everybody and I will unmute you, sir. 1 second, sir.
And also the recording, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Not all.
Give us a half a minute, sir. Sir, please go ahead, sir.
All right. Okay. So sorry for that interruption. Now, see, the reason why I decided to talk about ethical leadership in this particular conference comes from two motivations. My first motivation as to why should we be even talking about leadership, and the conference is clearly on something to do with quality systems. And we had an amazing presentation just before I started speaking. The reason comes from this little pearl of wisdom from this book called Alchemist. Now, for those of you who haven't read Alchemist, it's not a very deeply philosophical book. It's a superficially philosophical book, but it's got its own pearls of wisdom. And one of the things that Paulo Coelho says in The Alchemist is that everyone, when they are young, they know what their destiny is. At that point of time in their life, everything is clear. They're not afraid to dream and to yearn for everything that they would like to see happen in their lives. So when we are young, we are not afraid to dream. We know exactly what we want to become, and we think that we can become that. But as we keep growing, fears start coming inside us. And then we start getting distracted from all of those dreams that we have had. And therefore, Paulo Coelho says an amazing thing. He says, to realize your own destiny is your only real obligation. So please remember, ladies and gentlemen, that your only obligation and your first obligation and your first responsibility is towards you yourself. To figure out what is your true potential, and then you try to ensure that you come up to your true potential. So if the message is so simple, what really comes in the way of us achieving this a very simple thing? Problem is that there are too many of these stumbling blocks. The first stumbling block is that all of you are working in a very complex environment. Now, if I take the healthcare professionals, for example, it's a very complex environment because, first of all, they are supposed to provide healthcare. They're supposed to restore health by the use of medicine. And at the same time, now there is a motive that you must also make profits if you're a part of an organization, if you're part of the corporate world. And therefore, how do you balance this complexity about doing something which you believe is your primary responsibility versus another thing, which is your corporate responsibility, your responsibility towards organization that you're a part of? Multiplicity of roles. As a health professional, you will not be merely somebody who's administrating medicine or who's administrating healthcare, but you would also be a teacher. By the nature of its job, a healthcare professional is necessarily a teacher because you have to educate people on healthcare. You have to educate people on multiple aspects of healthcare. And therefore, all of these complexities together, they create a conflict. And this is where leaders and leadership come in, because leaders are those who actually manage to resolve conflicts. So if I take you through a very quick history of leaders and leadership, earlier, the entire focus used to be on the person, on a leader. So our entire imagination of a leader used to be a person sitting on a horse, preferably black or white, with a sword in his hand. And the entire premise of leadership was that blood ought to be shed, either by this person or other persons, or some reason, or of this person himself or herself, for the sake of a cause. So we looked at leaders either as heroes or martyrs. Subsequently, the focus changed and we started saying that, hey, let's not talk about leaders, let's talk about leadership. Let's not focus on the person, but let's focus on the process. Therefore, we came up with a definition, which means the social sciences came up with a definition of leadership, which said leadership is a process. Leadership is a process by which a person influences others, accomplish an objective, and directs the organization in such a way that makes it more cohesive and coherent. When I started teaching leadership. And this was after I had shifted to the academic world. So basically, I happened to be an electrical engineer, worked with Tata Steel for about 8.5 years, and then decided to shift to academics. So I went back to school at IIM Ahmedabad and completed my PhD, and then went to academia. I started teaching in 2005. And in 2008, I came across this definition. And in 2008 itself, I was teaching leadership when two things happened. And these are the two reasons why I have started talking about ethical leadership in every field. The first thing that happened was I used to ask my participants whenever I taught them leadership, and whenever I would give them this definition that leadership is a process by which a person influences others to accomplish an objective and directs the organization in such a way that makes it more cohesive and coherent, I would ask the participants to name a few leaders who matched this definition. In fact, why don't I do this? And the participants here, do they have access to the chat?
Not chat with each other, but they can chat with the host, sir. Would you like to take questions, sir?
No, not questions. I would like them to put some names here who, according to them, match this definition of leadership that I just told them. Just quickly type some names.
Yes, sir. We'll read them out for you. Abdul Kalam.
Okay.
Gandhi ji.
Okay. Quickly.
Dhoni.
Ms. Dhoni, okay.
Modi ji.
Modi.
Abraham Lincoln. Nelson Mandela.
Lincoln. Nelson Mandela. All right, wonderful.
Again Dhoni. Again Kalam.
I'm getting some here. I got Rahul
Stephen.
Dravid as well.
Professor KRS. Previous speaker, sir.
All right, wonderful. So that's it. Thank you so much. And I could see some names
Kamarajar.
as well. I saw Mukesh Ambani. Now, what happened was that when I started teaching leadership and I asked people to send me some names, Hitler was named in the same breath as Gandhi. People named Gandhi, which most of the participants do. They also named Hitler. And when I looked at the definition of leadership, I realized that there was nothing wrong with the person who named Hitler. There was something wrong in that definition because Hitler matched that definition. If you look at Hitler, Hitler did bring the entire Nazi Germany together towards an objective, and in such a way that the entire Nazi Germany worked together to take Germany there. And therefore, the problem was not with the person who was naming Hitler. The problem was with the definition. The question I asked to myself was, what is justice? What is fairness really? And here I put a question, and since many of you are going to be doctors or are going to be associated with doctors, I put forth to you one question. Imagine you're a doctor. Imagine you are in the ICU. It means your duty is in the ICU. Your hospital is the only hospital in a radius of 100 kilometers which has got one ventilator machine. There's an 80-year-old man who has been on that ventilator machine for the previous 4 days. Around midnight, family brings to you victim of an accident. Victim of an accident is a 6-year-old boy. You look at the boy, you realize that you will have to operate on the boy very, very quickly if you want to save his life. The problem is that you need at least 3 to 4 hours to prepare for the operation. Now, if you want to save the boy, you have to necessarily put him on the ventilator for at least 3-4 hours while you prepare for the operation. But if you put the boy on the ventilator, you have to take the old man out. The old man will necessarily die. However, if you do not put the boy on the ventilator, the boy will necessarily die. Now, my question is, what will you do? Now, again, in another session, in an interactive session, I would have possibly gone on to a little bit of a debate. A lot of people, class is usually split. The participants are usually split. Most participants say that we are going to save the boy. The argument that they give is, well, 80-year-old man has lived his life. The boy has a very long life ahead of him. There are some people who say, no, we are going to let the 80-year-old man be, even if it means that the boy dies because of status quoism. Who are we to pick God? If you take the old man away, then you are actively killing him. Therefore, their argument is that of status quoism. Now, the issue comes in, all of those who have said they will save the boy and let the old man die, I give them another piece of information. That piece of information is that 80-year-old man is your father. Now what will you do? Most people change their decision. Now they say, okay, I'm going to save my father. And therefore, my question to the participants is, then what does justice really mean? Because if you changed your answer, this is a relationship with that person, clearly you're not using the same yardstick across situations. And which is why it is extremely important for us to bring this entire element of justice and fairness in the discourse on leadership. My second discomfort happened with this definition was because of something that happened in the world of business in India. Of course, there was a subprime crisis which happened in the US in 2008. Something else happened in India in 2008. And what is it that happened? Ramalingam Raju happened. Here was a company called Satyam, and here was a person called Ramalingam. And yet he went for a 36,000 crore scam, actually shook the foundations of the world of business in India, and particularly because Ramalingam Raju was considered to be one of the most revered and respected business people. Therefore, the second question I asked myself was, do we need to bring a moral compass, the definition of leadership? And that is the reason why I talk about ethical leadership, because to me, this entire thing about scams, this entire thing about corruption, slightly more deeply rooted, is slightly more philosophical than we try and understand it. Because if you try to look at corruption, the regular definition of corruption is use of public power for private gain. Well, it's not use really, it's abuse of public power for private gain. And it says that it manifests itself through three methods: bribery, nepotism, and misappropriation of public funds. But to me, corruption is something more philosophical. To me, corruption is perversion of integrity. And by that, what I mean is, if you're not doing your job to the best of your ability, in my eyes, that is corruption. If I'm not giving the best session of my life while I'm speaking in this particular conference, in that case, I'm guilty of corruption. As health professionals, if you're not giving your best to the work that you've undertaken, if you're not giving the best to the work that you have promised to do, if you're not giving the best, whatever your responsibility is, to me, that is a form of corruption. And that is a reason why I talk about ethical leadership. So I'm going to talk about 4 principles of ethical leadership. I have 15 minutes with me. Then I'll end with that. The first principle of ethical leadership, according to me, is know yourself and seek self-improvement. Many people find it a little weird. They say, what do you mean know yourself? Of course I know myself. The point is, do you really know yourself in terms of your true identity? For example, when I was introduced, the host, he said, this is Himanshu, director of IIM Indore. Please remember, this is my most superficial identity because it is drawn from a position that I have. It is drawn from a designation that I have. And there's a very real danger if you start drawing your identity from your designation. The danger is, more often than not, we associate our feeling of self-respect and self-worth with our identity. Therefore, if you are associating your identity with your designation, the danger is the day the designation goes, so will your sense of self-respect. So will your sense of self-worth. And therefore, you need to draw your identity from something. But I'm not going to be the director of IIM Indore forever. It's a 5-year tenure term. I've already finished a year and 10 months. Therefore, I'm going to be the director for another 3 years and 2 months. And therefore, if I start drawing my identity from here, it is likely that I will lose it the day I cease being the director of this institution. And therefore, you have to dig a little deeper. And here comes my first story. I'll tell you 2 stories in the next 15 minutes within this particular speech. So the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Mahabharata happens to be my favorite book. So obviously, both the stories you'll get are from Mahabharata. The Pandavas and the Kauravas have actually finished their training in the ashrams of Drona, and now they're going back to the palace. Before getting into the palace, they're supposed to go to this place called Rangabhumi. Before entering the Rangabhumi, they are expected to introduce themselves. So they go in the order of seniority. Rishta comes in first and then gives his introduction. Me, the grandson of Bhishma, son of Pandu and Kunti, the nephew of Gandhari and Thrashed, so and so, B, C, D, F, blah, 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 Yudhishthir. Bhim goes in next and then again gives a very long introduction. Me, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, Bhim. Arjun goes in and says, Main Dron Shishya Arjun. Me, Arjun, the disciple of Dron. He enters. And Vidur asks him, Arth, is this your only identity? Is this your only parichay? And Arjun says, the point of time in my life that I find myself in, this is my only relevant identity. Therefore, the second level of identity, deeper level of identity, is drawn from the context of what is it that you're passionate about. And therefore, if any of you ask me, who are you? I'll say, I'm a teacher. Or I'll say, I'm a mountaineer. Because these are the two things from where I draw my real identity. These are the two things which make me passionate and which always give me happiness. Therefore, my first suggestion to all of you out there is find out what is your true identity. Know yourself. Me, you're a healer. You heal people. You help this world heal. You make this world a better place. And the moment you start drawing your identity from something deeper, you will realize that irrespective of what position you find yourself in, you will do something more than you actually already do. The second principle of ethical leadership, according to me, is seek responsibility and take responsibility for your actions. Now, what do I mean by this? More often than not, whenever it comes the time for us to go beyond the call of duty, we believe that it is somebody else's responsibility. We always believe that somebody else has to do their stuff first before we start doing it. So most of us, we expect the government to come and do something. In these COVID times, we expect the district administration to do something, some other administration to do something. But please remember, we need to take responsibility for our own action. The district administration, for example, can do everything. All of you health professionals can do everything. If people themselves are not wearing masks, if people themselves are not maintaining social distance or the physical distance, nothing that you do is going to be useful. And therefore, each of us has to take responsibility for our actions. And people say, what can I do as an individual? What difference will it make to the rest of the world? I have two answers for you. It's a very simple thing that you can do. First of all, why should you be doing this? There was this little girl who had gone to the beach with her dad. And there were a lot of dead fish which had actually been washed ashore. And there were some fish which were living amongst those dead fish. So the father was talking on the phone. Suddenly he realized that his daughter was doing something. And he noticed that what his daughter was doing was she was looking for the live fish which were live, that bunch, and then throwing them back into the sea. So the father went to the girl and said, what are you doing? She said, I'm saving the fish. The father laughed. He said, look at the beach. There are thousands and thousands of these fish. They are going to die in a matter of time. It's just a matter of minutes. You can't save them. You can't make any difference to this world. The little girl picked up one fish which was still alive, threw it into the sea, and said, I made a difference to that one. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, please remember, if you can make a difference to even a single person's life, and you are in a position, given the kind of a job that you're in, given the kind of a career that you have chosen to, if you can make a difference in even one person's life, you have done a lot of things. And to me, a very simple suggestion that I give to most people is, if you can leave your surroundings cleaner than you found them, and if you can leave people happier than you found them, you have done your job as an ethical human being. That to me is the second tenet of ethical leadership. The third tenet of ethical leadership is use your full capabilities. And why do I say that? It comes from the same thing, perversion of integrity. Why? Because every time some job is given to us, or every time we promise somebody else that I'm going to do this 120%, 130%, we hardly ever give our best. And that is vachane ka daridrita. If all we have to do is to speak and not really follow it up, we don't mind speaking in platitudes. We don't mind giving very, very tall promises. But please remember, if we don't give our 100%, then we are doing a disservice to whoever it is that we are responsible for. Therefore, you must use your full capabilities. If something is worth doing, ladies and gentlemen, please remember, if something is worth doing, it is worth doing well. Otherwise, don't do it. But if you're doing something, if you have promised to do something, you must do it very, very well. And my final and the fourth principle of ethical leadership is make the right choices. Make the right choices. Good leaders choose the easy over the difficult. But great leaders, ethical leaders, choose the right over the easy. And that is extremely important to differentiate between right and wrong. Now, please remember, I'm not here talking about morality. I'm nobody to talk about morality. Morality that draws from the Latin word moralitas is the difference between good and bad. And you have many people in your life who can tell you the difference between good and bad. Your religion tells you the difference between good and bad. Your family will tell you the difference between good and bad. The society will tell you the difference between good and bad. I'm here to talk about ethics. And ethics differentiates, it is derived from the Greek word ethos, and that differentiates between right and wrong. And right and wrong is different from good and bad. Right and wrong question comes in only when you contextualize good and bad. For example, killing. Killing is bad. You pick up any religion, it will say killing is bad. But is killing always the wrong thing to do? What if you're killing to protect the nation? What if you're killing to protect the dignity of yourself and your family? What if you're killing to actually protect a very, very large number of people, if you're killing a terrorist or some such thing? So clearly, killing at that point of time, under some circumstances, could actually be the right thing to do. Likewise, speaking the truth. Every religion will tell you that speak the truth no matter what. Satyam vad dharmam char, so on and so forth. But is speaking the truth always the right thing to do? No. For example, let's say a little girl is being chased by a killer. Somehow you know that this guy is a killer, and that little girl goes and hides somewhere. You know where she's hiding. The killer comes to you. You don't have the strength to fight the killer. And the killer says, hey, I'm chasing a girl and I know she's hiding somewhere. Can you tell me where she's hiding? Now, does any of you think that speaking the truth in this case will be the right thing to do? I guess not. And therefore, my question to you is, how do you differentiate between right and wrong? And why is it important to think only about right and wrong and not between good and bad? Here comes my final story. The killing of Karna. Karna was the firstborn of Kunti. I don't know how many of you know the story of Karna, but Karna was the firstborn of Kunti and was born with the blessings of the sun god, whatever that meant. Karna was a very cursed man. So in the times of Mahabharata, there were many people whose only job was to curse. They always used to go around in anger, shrap, 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 Parshuram, Durvasa, etc., etc. And everybody who knew how to curse had cursed Karna. Now we fast forward to the day 17 of the Mahabharata, and that is when Karna and Arjuna are having a duel, when Karna's chariot wheel gets stuck in the earth. Now Karna starts taking out the chariot wheel after putting his bow and arrow down. Arjuna continues to shoot arrows at him. So Karna tells Arjun, Arjun, can't you see that I'm unarmed? Why don't you relax for a while? Let me take out the wheel of my chariot and then we'll resume fighting. So Arjun gets a little embarrassed. He's about to put his bow and arrow down when Krishna admonishes him. And he says, Are Murk, Shatru ki baat sun rahe ho? That's the enemy you are talking to. Forget the enemy. Keep shooting arrows at him. So Arjun once again starts shooting arrows at Karna. And this time, Karna gets very serious. He says, Arjun, aren't you even embarrassed about what history is going to write about you? Aren't you even thinking about how posterity is going to judge you? Where is your Kshatriya dharma? And this time, Arjun was very embarrassed. He put his bow and arrow down and looked at Krishna. And Krishna knew that this time speaking to Arjun would be futile. So instead, Krishna addressed Karna. And he said, Karna, how dare you talk about dharma? Where was your dharma when Draupadi was being disrobed? Where was your dharma when on day 13 of the Mahabharata, the 6 of you got together and killed that Balak Abhimanyu? Where was your dharma when the Pandavas were almost burnt and killed in the Lakshagra? How dare you talk about dharma? And that is when Karna remembers all the curses that he had gotten and the reasons behind those curses. And then he smiles. And then he tells Arjun, Arjun, you just heard Krishna. Don't worry about the good and the bad of the action that you were about to do. Think about the right thing to do, because whatever Krishna is saying is the right thing to do. And Arjun once again picks up his bow and arrow and starts shooting them. And one of the arrows carries Karna's head with it. Now, the question normally that I ask people is, what do you think about this killing of Karn? Was it good and right? Was it good but wrong? Was it bad but right? Or was it bad and wrong? I get multiple answers, but the point is, even Gita says that you must think about the difference between right and wrong. Don't worry too much about the good and bad, because that is out there given by the society. In a particular given situation, you have to differentiate between right and wrong. So how can you differentiate between right and wrong? So I give you my mantra, which comes from the Ishopanishad, which is again the 40th chapter of Yajurveda with its 17 mantras. And that says, measure every action of yours with 3 yardsticks: lajja, bhay, shanka. Lajja is shame or embarrassment. Bhay is fear. And shanka is doubt. And what the Upanishad says is, if you feel any of these 3 before performing an action, it's a wrong action. And if you don't feel any of these 3 before performing an action, it's a right action. So to all of you, ladies, gentlemen out there, and to all my young friends out there, this is one of those yardsticks that you can actually use in your life. And therefore, to summarize now, I have these 3 takeaways for you. My first takeaway from my entire talk is, remember, things in your life are never going to be as good as you hope, and they are never as bad as you think them to be. Always deal with things with equanimity. Don't let situations bog you down. Lesson number 2, watch your thoughts become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. And watch your habits, they become your character. The road to character lies with your thoughts. So try and have positive thoughts. Look at everyone with a sense of positivity, and you will see goodness in every human being. And the final lesson, my favorite chapter 2, Shlok 47 of Mahabharata, of Gita, everyone knows the first line, Karmane vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan. Focus on the first part of the second line, Ma karmfal heturbhu, ma te sangos akarmani, ma karmfal heturbhu. Don't do something for the sake of what you will get out of it. Do it because it's a right thing to do. Don't take care of your parents so that they will leave your name on the will when they pass away. Do it because it's the right thing to do. Don't take care of your children so that they will take care of you when you become old. Do it because it's a right thing to do. So ladies and gentlemen, please remember, the past may have belonged to those leaders who did things well. The future is going to belong to those leaders who not only do things well, but also do the right things. Thank you very much. And my many, many congratulations to all the event organizers. And I'm sure that this event is going to go very well. Thank you very much for inviting me over. I hope you found something useful in whatever I had to speak. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Himanshu Rai, sir. That was a fantastic speech. You have inspired us. A lot of lessons in that. Thank you once again. Thank you very, very much. Now we'll come to the last topic for today, continuous quality improvement in healthcare by Professor Lieutenant Colonel A. Ravi Kumar, sir.
Full screen.
So we can see your screen, sir, and hear you also.
Well, good afternoon, and I've been asked to do a Dhoni act, and thank you for that. And I'm not Dhoni, so I'll have to somehow adjust for lost time. I hope we have a few audience still remaining. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about something which I can claim that I have been associated with, and I can talk from personal experience. Although I'm occupying a different chair now, in my previous institution, we had a lot of accreditations and a lot of preparations in preparing the hospital for quality checks. So based on that, I'm talking, and also recently with the National Accreditation Board for Hospitals, which has started going down the various hospitals of the country, checking them, this point has become important.
Sir, I have one request, sir. Although we are running out of time, don't reduce your talking, sir. This is a very important topic, so we would like to hear the complete one, sir. No abridgment. Thank you, sir.
I will not go line by line. I understand the value of time. So
no, sir. Even if you go a little more time, it's okay, sir, because your topic is important. So we would love to hear from you, sir, fully.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And some of the things which I'll be talking is probably going to be out of personal experience. And most of it is already known. The NABH has done a wonderful job in publishing that 5th edition of the book, which gives you all the details. So I don't have to repeat everything which is said on that. Now, taking a clue from my previous speaker who spoke extremely well and on ethics, it's all about what you have to answer your own conscience. And I think he's absolutely right. You should first ask yourself what you want to be, and you should be that person whom you want to be. So I think if you have that moral courage to accept that and do what you think is right, and if it is in conformity with what the society expects you to be, then you achieve mental peace and you'll be quite happy. Now, we talked about quality in this webinar. So I start with my introductory remark on this. This is my own definition of quality, what I think. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see your slides and hear you clearly, sir.
Yeah, okay. Quality is a process. It is not just a one-time event. It's a process to improve effectively the functioning of an organization by involving all individuals in that organization and effecting a behavioral change for the betterment of the organization as stated in its vision and mission. I think the vision and mission have been stated for many big institutions, and that has been done with a lot of thought. And if we can effect a behavioral change in the whole lot of people working for the organization, we could have achieved better quality of whatever we are doing in that field. Whereas so many other definitions are there. In healthcare, it can be defined as one that is accessible, the facility, the appropriate, available, affordable, effective. So many adjectives are used. But most important of all this, I think it's the last two. It should be a safe and a patient-related one. And that is what I'm going to talk about during this 25 minutes, which I spared for this. Quality management in healthcare is to manage the process of care. As outlined by my previous speaker, we are there to care for individuals who are not so privileged that they are able to enjoy good health. We are nursing them back to normalcy. So we have to have this ethos that we should be relating to the patient, and also it should be safe and not sorry. And it refers to observing the organizational functions and interaction of procedures and processes that can be addressed individually. I'm still talking about quality in healthcare. The traditional view of quality control aimed at defect detection, while the current concept aims at defect prevention. A continuous process improvement and outcome-driven system guided by patients' needs. All those which are marked in blue are the important keywords. So we are not trying to find fault, we are trying to prevent faults. We are trying to continuously improve our performance. And we are also being judged by the patient, who is our person who expects us to perform perfectly well at all times. I often tell my students that the doctor's profession is difficult because, not because you should be brilliant or a great intellectual. You need that compassion and that ability to attend and perform to the need of the patient at any point of time, whether it is 2 a.m. in the morning or 3 p.m. in the afternoon when you have missed your breakfast and lunch. So that is where we stand. So as long as you address this, the quality will automatically come. And in the healthcare delivery, according to me, this triangle represents the three components which we have to address. That is, if you take the hospital or a healthcare facility as a center point, and you have this patient safety is on top, absolutely no doubt about it. And that is where we are aiming for every now and then. And the second is the process of quality, which I explained shortly. That is, we have to make sure that we improve every time we do a particular thing. As I often say to my students, the successful people don't do different things. They do the same things differently. So we have to make that quality into every aspect of our day-to-day life. Only then we can stand out as a quality organization. And third aspect is the staff safety. We don't call them employees anymore, whether it is a nurse or a person who's pushing the wheelchair, he or she should be safe. What I mean by that, in this present era of COVID, we have to protect our staff. And in my hospital, in the hospital I'm working now, we have taken extreme measures, even though we are incurring huge costs, make sure that our staff are well protected and they don't catch the infection. You know what I mean. You have to be very cautious in dealing with these patients and avoid our staff from getting the infection. So the quality process aims at patient safety, employee or staff safety, and also the community at large should be also taken care of. So we do have a large community which lives around the place of work, including the campus. They all have to be safe. And along with it comes the information, education, and communication. We have to actually improve on these things, especially the last one. Communication skill is a poor subject which has been neglected for long. And because of that, doctors and medical practitioners suffer, and they are often blamed for that. So if a quality process is there, if a patient is coming into the hospital or the medical care facility and is properly addressed and the communication skills of the practitioner is good, I think more than 50 to 60% of the problem is taken care of by that itself. So research, why do we have on quality in healthcare? We all trained at a time when all these subjects were not talked about. We just looked at our role models. One of them passed away just 2-3 days back. You must have heard about Dr. K.V. Thiruvengadam. And what a person, was a giant of a man in this field, and how much we learned from observing him and discussing patients' problems with him. So we didn't have this, but then now everything is research oriented. So we see a lot of avoidable patient injury, which is occurring in hospitals, can be prevented if you have a quality research occurring in the hospital. Very, very simple things like how not to do a thing, how to do it correctly. You don't need rocket science to find out those things. Mainly the process in the hospital, from the point of entry to the point of exit. Is the patient going out happier than when he came inside? Is he going out with less pain? That's what matters a lot. So the quality has to be measured and it has to be improved upon. And then we find that if you don't have these quality parameters, the risk of adverse outcomes and higher costs are increasing. Litigation has increased a lot in the Western world. It is increasing a lot in India also. It is because of several factors. One of them is because we don't have a quality process in the healthcare industry across the country. It may be happening in certain institutions. And most importantly, we are ensuring safety for the patients and the personnel who are working in the healthcare facility and improving the quality of care. And assurance is nothing but what the organization promises as a positive declaration that he will make sure that the patient, if not relieved of the disease, at least will be comforted before they walk out of the healthcare facility. And it gives the security, this is for the industry, that the product will work. But we cannot give such security, but we can definitely give them some reasonable expectations of getting well than what they came into the healthcare facility. So all these are important statements. And if I can go back to the second one here, it just states that we want to prevent defects, we want to prevent complications, we want to prevent failures, and we want to prevent accidents. It's more on preventing rather than acting upon something which has happened. It's like knowing in advance that this can be a problem, so we take all precautions before it happens. And it's a proactive process. Now, quality management is something which is a word which we picked up from the management schools, but the policy is laid down by the management or the administrator. But who implements it? It is everybody who is working in the particular organization. And all these terms are used: quality control, assurance, activities, etc. if you analyze the whole thing, the system itself is to ensure the effective delivery of healthcare. Last sentence which I made, that states it. And for that, you need not only good ideas, good processes, a very, very efficient and very effective training system for the entire lot of people working in the healthcare facility, doctor, nurse, attenders, even the person who's carrying the stretcher. Everybody should be trained in such a way that they all think of quality all the time and deliver what is expected of them without any shortfall. If that can occur, it will become a quality organization. So I just skip this one and go on. What are the major benefits of this quality care? Number one, the care itself will improve automatically. It's a rub-on effect. If you see the doctor is very insistent on certain procedures to be done in a certain way, the nurse will follow, the juniors will follow. Of course, sometimes when the doctor turns his head the other side, when the chief turns his head the other side, things may not happen the same way. But then over a period of time, they know that there is this the way in which the chief can find out, so he will also change. This has happened in front of my eyes for the JCI certification when we had to go for it. So many things, they thought of shortcuts, but nothing worked. Ultimately, they had to comply. So that is what I meant in the beginning as a behavioral change. It has to happen. It's a rub-on effect. It takes time, but it will happen. Once it happens, the patient safety and satisfaction are assured, and the organizational efficiency is enhanced, and the healthcare providers can use the same techniques and tools to reduce medical errors and help ensure patient safety. Small example here, we did not have this facility for doing post-surgical patient dressings in the bedside when we started the accreditation process in my previous institution. When we started having that, and we set the rules on what all to be kept and how things have to be done, gave demonstrations, video recordings, etc. We found the infection rate reduced, patient comfort improved, patients were happy, they didn't have to walk with the post-operative wound to the dressing room and do it there and walk back to the bed again. And the nurses got trained. The whole thing started working better. So, and it became easier, and the medical errors also reduced because we could find that many instruments and many other things which are not existing in the ward suddenly started coming up, and we could do the job much better. And that was the improvement. It was reflected by the feedback we got from the patients. And it eliminated waste of time, and also the patient handling capacity and flow improved with all these small things. It is all the small bits of activity which add on and improve the overall workflow and improve the efficiency of the organization. This is the model which we follow. We plan. A simple example which I gave you just now, if I have to do a dressing on a patient, I should have all the requisite material available to me before I start touching the patient. Number two, I'll have to plan and tell the people around what I'm going to do, including the patient and the patient attendant. Then I do. While I'm doing, somebody is watching and assisting. Then I check if I've done it properly or not. Or somebody tells, if it's a junior doctor doing it, he's checked and he's corrected. The correct way is taught to him. And then we act on the problems. And again, we redo the same cycle again and again. So this plan, do, check, act cycle goes on forever. That is why I said quality is a process. It is not a one-time event. So it's something which we can keep on evolving and we can keep on improving upon. And the better you get, the more enthusiastic you are as well as your team. And it becomes very easy for us to function because that becomes the norm. So it's no more myself doing everything and it's me everywhere. It is we, you, and us as a team to perform a quality process, and that takes the organization to a different level. In a healthcare facility, we have several things which contribute to quality process. If I can go through some of the things which I have mentioned here, benefits I've already alluded to. And then we have in a healthcare organization, patients are our main clientele, and they are the ones who are to be happy. And who is interacting with them most is the healthcare professional. And quality control comes right from the top. And as I already told you, it's plan, do, plan again, and act. So we keep on doing this cycle again and again. And it adds to the patient safety. Risk management becomes easier. While all this is happening, we are also doing a quality check by self-assessment and the process itself, finding out the gaps, giving the assurance to the patient based on what you have done to the gaps. Namely, one of the speakers very correctly mentioned about auditing. If you audit your results, you audit your processes, you learn a lot. One of the important aspects on which I used to talk is about medical audit, and every surgeon, since I am an ENT surgeon, has to audit his own results. Only then you'll come to know what your results are like. It's very easy for us to tell a patient that I'll do this operation and you'll be absolutely all right in 2 days' time. But how many of your past patients have been all right in 2 days' time? What was your results? We hardly analyze it. Similarly, every process in the quality cycle has to be assessed and analyzed. If we do that, then we'll be able to give an assurance. Blankly copying what is given in the literature and saying this particular procedure has got 90% success is not correct. In my hands, it may be only 80%. Similarly, the quality process in your hospital or your healthcare facility may not be that perfect, but it can reach the perfection level even higher than the average of the other healthcare facilities if we continue to audit and improve. That is what we mean by total quality management, where everybody is responsible for quality. Everybody analyzes, assesses, audits, and corrects and improves. The whole ethos is to have a continuous process of quality assessment and improvement in order to benefit the patient. Now, I'll give you a few examples of what we have been doing, like pressure injuries, risk assessment, incident reporting, and monitoring of medication, the administrating process, and the errors, medication errors. This is one of the things which we did where we had documented our incidents of the patients who were in admission had this chances of getting a bed sore. We call it a pressure injury, and how to prevent it. So all the measures were identified, and ulcer is, if there is ulcer is in the dependent part, and see how it is over a bony prominence, and what all has been done to reduce the friction, and how the ulcer behaved after our intervention, how long the patient stayed, and what were the indicators, and what is the final outcome. So we had analyzed this over a period of time. This is 2017 statistics going up to 18. And you see that the red line represents the accepted or the standard. As long as you are below that, you're okay. But then there are some times when it went higher than that. So in these sort of circumstances, we immediately do a kappa. We have to find out what happened in this particular patient, analyze and correct the process and bring it down to below the accepted percentage. So this is one. The second one is about incidents that we can take, like for example, safety. Falls is one of them, patient falling off the bed. You can actually record it by noticing how much the side rails are maintained, even while the patient is being transported. And also we can see that the incidence of patients falling in the bathroom due to slippery floors. these sort of things. And then we have to report them and find out what is the reason and trying to correct it. So again, this has to be maintained below a certain acceptable level. These standards are developed from other institutions who have done this, and they have set up some standards. These are all patient safety issues. And wrong medication or the improper dose medication being given. If you take on the left side, there is a patient who's had a penicillin allergy. There is no history. Penicillin was given and he had a severe adverse reaction indicated in the red. And then it was immediately corrected. This would be something like a adverse reaction which has been corrected by efficient management by the team which was in the patient care team. The second event would be where he actually had known case of penicillin allergy, but penicillin was ordered, given, and he had severe reaction. This is an adverse event, totally adverse event. This will be going toward negligence also if you're not properly reacted and saved the patient. And the last one, which I'm talking on the right-hand side below here, where the dosage was wrong. 250 milligrams was ordered and 500 milligrams was given. But luckily, the patient did not have any problem. This is called a near miss event. So he could have had a problem, but luckily for us, he did not have. So all these can happen in drugs which are administered. Now, all the nursing category of people who are working in the hospitals have to be sensitized to this. So usually the documentation is just written on the case sheet, give this much injection, so and so. But then here we used to have a double check. One will be the doctor's notes and the doctor order sheet. Then a nurse's order sheet where actually she signs off that she's given the dose and watches for the reaction also. So these are compared, and then we do the audit and find out where the things have gone wrong. So these sort of small interventions, in fact, we used to check almost about 700 plus processes which are used in patient care. Next, we come on to the safety of the personnel working in the hospital. We have approximately this number which I've given you, which I have actually distributed doctors, nurses, support staff, that is the technicians, patient care attendants, etc. In casualty itself has got a lot of people. All of them are exposed to the vagaries or the risk of catching infection, having a needle stick injury, or getting exposed to diseases such as HIV, HBS, that is hepatitis B, because of unprotected gloves or not wearing gloves or masks, things like that. I don't have to elaborate on the protective clothing and other things now when the pandemic has made us aware of it. Earlier to it, even when I was house surgeon, gloves were in short supply. We used to have reusable gloves. We used to wash it and put it back for drying and use it again. So such sort of practices have been stopped because of the risk of infection from a patient to another and from the patient to the doctor, etc. Hepatitis B, hepatitis C, then HIV, all these diseases and plus cross infections can all be stopped. Now, it is mandatory that all our healthcare workers should be protected against hepatitis B. But is it mandated by every hospital? Sadly, no. Is it mandated by every healthcare facility? Sadly, no. How many of our doctors and healthcare professionals actually are aware that they are supposed to have the vaccination, not only the vaccination, second dose, and then a booster dose, and then check for the titer? They don't do it. And what happens? By chance, if the infection does come, who is to be blamed? These are the issues. In a quality institution, nobody will be allowed to practice unless they have a proper titer of hepatitis B, which is a much more dangerous disease. And we have to have all safety precautions, safety protection gear when you are dealing with a patient with hepatitis B or HIV positive. It is not to frighten the patient, it is to protect the person who is working in the hospital. This is also the responsibility of the management and the administration of the healthcare facility. And it is also the responsibility of the team leader, of which the doctor will be the usual team leader. He should be aware that his own health worker should also be protected. He cannot just walk away saying that it is not part of my duty. It is a team which is working for him. So some staff safety measures I have listed here. Not only pre-employment health checkup, immunization at regular intervals, safety drills. What happens if there is a fire in the operating theater by any chance? How do we evacuate the patients? I can tell you that as an operating room committee chairman, I made this drill a compulsory one, and we found the lacunae in certain areas. We actually evacuated patients from the operating table through the fire escapes, how we could do it, where were the problems. So these have to be practiced. Similarly, when you have a national calamity, how do we practice? How do we do it? These are all quality issues. Basic life support is a compulsory requirement by everybody dealing with patients, not only the doctors, including the ambulance personnel should know about it. And PPE is something which is a must, provided the institution and the individual are all cooperating in it. That is why I told in the beginning, at the time of the definition itself, it is something which is practiced by the entire group or the entire team, not just being thrust down by the administration or just 2 people wear the mask and rest of them are not bothered. That is not correct. How do we stop those erring people from and correcting them? It is done by incident reporting and analysis. So if we find we have safety nurses and they actually quietly stand in the corner of the ward or the facility and record what's happening. How do we give the injection? How do we talk to the patient? How is the protective equipment used or not used? Where does the waste material get thrown? These sort of things are important. And then we analyze and find out how we can correct the mistakes. Documentation is a huge error in many medical institutions. This is also a reflection of the quality of the institution. One of the common mistakes is that people do document something, they sign, but we don't know who has signed it because they don't put their name on it. Being from the armed forces, it was an order to every medical officer that he had to carry a small rubber stamp in his pocket. And every time he signed, he had to put his stamp under it so that we knew who signed it. An impersonation would not be possible. Similarly, we need to have a ear to people who are giving some suggestions. Collecting feedback is an important part of quality process. Feedback from everybody who is using the hospital, including the people who come to visit the hospital. And that will go a long way in improving our quality. So we come to the infrastructure, which is also very important. We did not realize it till we actually had the JCI accreditation process. Every lift, every washroom, everywhere where we had to have, patient had to have a grab bar or an assisted device or a lift or a chair lift. Fire safety was actually checked. The level at which the fire safety equipment was kept so that it can be even taken out by a shorter person. For example, if you have this extinguisher kept at 5 feet height, a nurse who is just about 4.5 feet tall, she may not be able to reach and take it out. So that also was measured by the person who came, who was an engineer himself. Basically, they were creating a safe environment, and they inspected the water supply, how we purify the water, what are the drainage facilities, how does biomedical waste get thrown out. So we think it's all extra burden, but we now realize how important it is. If you actually take a quick survey now, when the COVID episode actually has happened in the last 6-7 months now, we find that many other diseases have not happened because we are living comparatively in a cleaner environment, less pollution, less of garbage, because garbage collection has been quite effective, and other viral illnesses and other gastrointestinal diseases have actually reduced. So it gives you a nice feeling that you can actually prevent all this. And if the hospital doesn't lead the way, how can we do it in other places? It was really shocking sometimes when I went to the government hospitals and I found it was so badly maintained. And I already told you about the evacuation disaster plan. We have known of hospitals actually getting more casualties because of the lack of a disaster plan. So, ladies and gentlemen, quality improvement is the healthcare, is the right care for the right person at the right time. And leading the charge for quality improvement in healthcare is our responsibility. Otherwise, you should be out of the healthcare facility. That is what this slide is representing. And there are two types of quality improvement. One is a continual one and the other one is a continuous improvement. Continual means that the approach is repeated. That is, you do a particular thing, you are happy with it, keep quiet for a while, and then you try and repeat it and see if there is any difference between the two repetitions. That is not the preferred method. A continuous improvement is one which does not stop at all, and it will constantly look to making the improvements. It's a sustained process, and that is what is required. Today I am so-and-so, I've got this skill. Tomorrow I should be better than what I'm doing today. If that be the mantra, we'll definitely do a lot better. And we have to also define that the patient demands that he wants the structures and process that must be actually in place in an organization to enhance the quality of the care. So it is not only for us, it is for the public at large who are expecting us to perform perfectly well at all time. So we go on to some required standards. And these standards have been laid down because of bad experiences and also the quality institutions which have been following the good clinical practice, and those have become the standards for us. So we have to have this in mind, that not only the material, products, processes, and services are fit for what they are being used. You all heard about the substandard material used in the PPE recently, and how much they exposed the doctors and nurses to the COVID virus. So we have to be careful in what we do. And already they've talked about quality assurance, quality control and planning, so I don't want to go back into this. It encompasses a different way of practicing whatever profession you're doing, whether it is medical or what. So in our NABH, we have this following so many of these parameters which they are supposed to be checking. I don't want to go into all the details, but just remember, it's not only the care of the patient, which is the most important one, medication management, patient's rights to be respected, infection control, patient safety, facility, human resource management, and information system. We should be able to access results. If somebody has got a low potassium level in the middle of the night, you should not be waiting for the result. It should be coming on the computer in the ward. That should be the norm. So that sort of system has to be there to ensure quality. And emergency services are something which is a different ball game. You have to be absolutely well prepared and trained. What I have found over the years is not that the equipment or the knowledge is lacking. It is just the training which is lacking. And just as you have now the National Disaster Relief Force, which comes into action whenever there's a disaster in the nation and it is sent to all corners of the country. We did not have it about 15 years ago, and we used to have chaos. So similarly, the hospital should have its own plan how to react to a disaster. And if the people are trained well, they'll perform. Every person should know what his or her role is in case of an emergency. Otherwise, there will be confusion and chaos. So, drug usage, again, it has to be done safety. There is something called look-alike and sound-alike medicines, LASA they call it. There are medications which are similar colored, so they should be kept separately. Certain medicines have to be prepared in the ward and given. So these sort of small things which are there, which have to be followed, because these small incidents add up to the big problems. There is something called a Sentinel Event in any healthcare facility. An event which can result or which can actually precipitate a life-threatening complication or a complication which will leave that patient totally paralyzed or vegetable. Such things are viewed very seriously and the hospital accreditation is removed. So we should prevent the smaller ones so that the bigger ones don't occur. And patient safety takes top priority, and clinical audit, as I already mentioned, becomes a very important part of our process of maintaining quality in whatever we do. And when you do clinical audit, it should be absolutely impartial and done with a scientific temper rather than individual preferences. It is not a blame game. As I told in the beginning, it is to not fault finding, it is to prevent faults from happening again. If that be the attitude, there will be always continual quality improvement. Responsibilities of the management. Now, most managements, those who are actually in the private sector, they are all the time conscious about the financial outcome of a healthcare facility. Healthcare facilities do not make money in the beginning, but in order to make that money, we should not cut corners. If we start doing that by increasing the load, performing unnecessary investigation, there will be always a profit in the short term, but in the long term, the image of the institution and the quality of care will be poorer. So that's a track which one needs to address. And it is for our colleagues, the professionals, to explain this to the people who are running these hospitals. And facility management, I already told you, I don't want to go into details. Remember only one thing, that medical equipment have got a finite time and they also get outdated. So it is actually better to plan well in advance and invest wisely. Information to patients. This is extremely important in these days. Even with the internet on, with the mobile phone going on, still there is a lot of scope for directly talking to the patient because that is what he expects. And ethical practice is something which we have to relate to the person who is our client. And if that is not done, for whatever reason, it does not really reflect on the quality of the institution. And this is something which we have to teach our younger colleagues, the people in training, so that we have to elevate them to quality doctors or quality professionals. That is why communication skills has become an important part of MBBS curriculum. The National Accreditation Board for Hospitals has actually done a wonderful job. And the latest edition, the 5th edition of the book, which has come out in 2020, April, is really a wonderful compilation. And I would advise all people who are in the healthcare scenario to go through this. It emphasizes on the quality, safety, and wellness, and it is very, very easily understood and clearly explained. It has got a very good, clear vision of being an apex national healthcare accreditation and quality improvement body, functioning at par with global benchmarks. And it's got a very good mission. And accreditation allied programs in collaboration with stakeholders. They're not doing it like an inspector. They want to collaborate with us and make sure that the quality of care is improved, focused on patient safety, quality of healthcare, so based on national and international standards, the process of self and external evaluation. Self is what I told by incident reporting, and the external evaluation is by accreditation. And we have key indicators, several of them. And these accreditations which we get are a reflection on the quality of service which you are providing. Can be by a non-governmental organization also. And accreditation is done for so many things, including the labs, blood bank, imaging services, ISO, and Joint Commission International. And the Joint Commission International is probably a very much higher standard than what we have, but NABH is no less. It is focused on patient safety and excellent care and quality healthcare policies. Otherwise, this is what will happen. We can avoid all this unnecessary litigation and adverse publicity if you have a quality process in place in every healthcare facility in this country. Quality is never 99.9%. It is either 0 or 100%. That's my parting remark to you. And finally, quality is a journey, it is not a destination. So we have to keep progressing. It is not a fault-finding process. It is a fact-finding process with the idea to prevent mistakes which can happen and to improve continuously across all healthcare workers. With that, I end my talk. Thank you very much for giving me the time and listening to me patiently. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, sir. Professor Lieutenant Colonel A. Ravikumar, sir. Thank you for being with us, all of you. We appreciate this very much. Not a fault finding. This echoed twice. Professor K.R. sir also said the same thing. So thank you very much for patient hearing, being with us throughout this session. I would like to thank our Chancellor, Sri M.K. Rajagopalan, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Subhash Chandra Parija, and all the three speakers of today, Professor K.R. Seduraman, Professor Lieutenant Colonel A. Ravikumar, and Professor Himanshu Roy, for the excellent sessions. We enjoyed all the talks. There was a thread throughout all the 4 topics. I thank Professor Usha Karunanidhi for arranging this. I am moderating the session on behalf of her. I wish her early recovery. Thank you very much for being here. Last but not the least, we thank all the participants for their patient hearing, being with us here today afternoon, throughout this afternoon and today evening. I wish you all a very good evening and a good productive week ahead. Hopefully, after a month or 2, we will again have another webinar on the same topic of quality, perhaps on a different aspect of quality. Please join us once again for that session. It might be in the month of December, probably, after the holidays. Thank you very much. I won't take any much of your time. We will be mailing you your certificates of participation as well as a feedback form. Kindly fill the feedback form. Thank you once again. And I especially thank our contributors, our technical staff, and everybody else who has helped us organize this. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you, KRS sir, for staying with us till the end. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you all. We will end the session here. Thank you once again. Thank you.